Alrighty, today we are going to be adding fractions with unlike denominators. So we've been adding fractions with like denominators, and when we see fractions that don't have like denominators, we want to make sure that we change them so that we can add them. So the first step, if you see fractions set up horizontally, like this example, 1/3 plus 2/4, it's good to copy it down vertically for when we get started so that we can really focus on the denominators. So set up your fractions vertically. Now we are going to look at our denominators and we're going to find the least common denominator, and that's just like finding the least common multiple, but we're going to call it finding the least common denominator. So we're going to look at our denominators 3 and 4, and we're going to find the multiples of 3 and 4. So there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. And we can keep going, but we'll go to 4 and see if there are any common multiples in 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16, and I notice that we have a common multiple, 12, and that's a least common multiple, so that's going to be our least common denominator. Step 3, we're going to make these fractions equivalent. So since we found our least common denominator, we know that that's going to be our new denominator. And now we want to see what our numerators are going to be. So in order for me to get from 3 to 12, I needed to multiply my denominator by 4. And if I multiply my denominator by 4, I need to multiply my numerator by 4. So the equivalent fraction of 1/3 is equal to 4/12. And now I'm going to look at my second fraction. Well, I had 4, and I know that I need to have a denominator of 12, so I needed to multiply 4 times 3. And if I multiply my denominator by 3, I need to multiply my numerator by 3 as well. And that's 2 times 3, which is 6. Now I found my equivalent fractions, and these both now have like denominators. So the fourth thing that we're going to do is we're going to add them. So let's add 4/12 plus 6/12. And just like we learned a couple of days ago, our denominator is going to stay the same. So our denominator is going to be 12, and then we add our numerators. 4 plus 6 is 10. So now my fraction is, since I've added the two fractions together, I got 10/12. And just like you know, I want you to make sure that you put it in simplest form. So if I have 10/12, I can see that 10 can be divided by 2 and 12 can be divided by 2. And so my final answer is going to be 5/6. Oops. And we have added the fractions that once had unlike denominators, but we made them so they had like denominators so we can add, and then we simplified our answer. So I know that I went through those steps, and if you didn't get a chance to copy them down, here is your chance. So we are adding unlike fractions. The first thing that I want you to do for now is copy the problem down vertically, which means up and down. So here's an example. I want you then to find the least common multiple, also known as the least common denominator, and that's going to get our fractions to have the same denominator. Then once you have the least common denominator, you're going to make equivalent fractions. Then you're going to add the numerators and keep the denominator the same, and then you're going to put your answer in simplest form. So make sure that this is in your notes. So let's go over a couple more practice problems. If I had 2/5 and 2/10, I want to set that up vertically. And my denominators are not the same, so I'm going to find my least common denominator and use the same steps as we did for finding our least common multiple. And let's do the multiples for 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Oh, can't see the 5 in that, 25. And for 10, there's 10, 20, 30, 40. And my least common multiple, or my least common denominator, is going to be 10. So when I'm adding 2/5 plus 2/10, I know that my new equivalent fractions are going to have a 10 as the denominator, and this one, since it already has a 10 as a denominator, we're just going to keep it the same. And what did I need to multiply 5 by to get 10? I needed to multiply 5 times 2, And since I multiplied my denominator by 2, I need to multiply my numerator by 2. And 2 times 2 is 4. And I multiplied 10 times 1, which is equal to 10. So 2 times 1 is 2. Now that my denominators are the same, I can add. My denominator is going to stay the same in my answer, and I add the numerators. 4 plus 2 is equal to 6. I want you guys to do this problem along with this problem for homework. And if you need to pause it, you can. I have a couple more slides of homework problems that I want you to do as well. So you can pause it here and finish these problems. And then I want you to also work on these 2 problems. And for the final problem, I want you guys to try to add the 3 fractions. So what you need to do is you're going to need to find the least common denominator for 2, 4, and 5. And then I want you to add all 3 of them together. So find the least common denominator and then make your equivalent fractions and then add the numerators. Alrighty, we'll see you tomorrow.